how did that conversation go with your family when you were 15 in 10th grade?
Oh, shit. So, yeah, my family has always been very supportive of everything that, makes me happy and everything that I need to be a good human, which is great. Shout out to my family. They're the best. Love you guys. But, yeah, it was pretty weird when, I brought up the conversation of, hey, I want to drop out. My parents always knew I hated high school pretty much since my first day of, kindergarten. I think my mom was telling me I was, crying at kindergarten, the very first day I ever, left my house. And, yeah, so I just don't like that environment. I want to be free and I want to learn things on my own, and I want to learn by being out in the world. So before I get into how my parents reacted to me wanting to drop out of high school, I'll tell the story of what led me to dropping out of high school.
Okay. That sounds awesome.
So, I've always, like I said, hated high school. I've always been kind of I need to get out. I need to start doing stuff for myself. And mountain biking kind of was a catalyst for this. So I had a friend, Kelsey Hoog. You guys probably know Kelsey.
Big shout out to Kelsey, yeah.
Big shout out to Kelsey. He's the realest. I was talking to him one day at the dirt jumps, Fallbrook dirt jumps in Thornton.
Yeah.
Literally been rebuilt all the time. But I was talking to him there, and I was like, yo, Kelsey, how do you always have time to ride bikes and be out here just having fun and doing your thing? And because I know he was not old enough to have been graduated high school yet.
Yeah, he was full-time riding at I don't think
16, 17.
We should ask him to be on the podcast at some point.
Definitely. Yeah. So
because he was killing it on a bike when he was 15, 14.
Definitely, yeah, he's crushing it. But yeah, I was like, yo, Kelsey, how do you always have time to do all this stuff? And he's like, well, I got dropped out of high school and I got my GED. I was like, oh, what's the GED? He's like, well, it's the general education diploma. I was like, okay, tell me more. So he told me a little bit about how he got it, and so I started doing a bunch of research on it. Looked up, everything that I needed to know. I started doing some practice tests online. And at the time, I was 15. And I believe in the state of Colorado, you have to be 18.
Really?
But I did some digging around. I found this form online that allows you to do it when you're 15 or above, I think it was. So I found this form, I filled it out, and basically presented this whole pitch packet to my parents of hey, here's what I want to do, here's my plan. I know it's super crazy. Give it some thought.
I'm literally picturing you the classic trifold poster board and if you look here, Mom and Dad.
No, it was PowerPoint.
Yeah.
It was PowerPoint.
Yeah.
With the laser pointer.
It wasn't that crazy. I had all the information, stuffed away somewhere on my computer, but I was basically just didn't really present them with any papers. I was just hey, here's my plan. I'm pretty much going to do it if you guys let me. And they were at first just what? There's no way. Prove to us that this is real. And you found this form online so you can do it when you're 15. What is this? So presented all that. A couple of months went by of just me nagging them about it all the time. And finally, I just went to my last day of school. And, I was pretty sure I'd convince my parents at that point. I really didn't get the final okay or anything. But I went into my last day of school and basically just told all my teachers, hey, I appreciate you guys and everything you do. Don't take this disrespectfully, but I'm going to be dropping out today. And pretty much everyone was what? Who do you think you are? But there was one teacher, Priestley Parker, who was really cool, and I always knew he was cool. And he was like, you know what, Connor, I'm stoked for you, congratulations, let me know how it goes. So that was when I was 15, and I'm 22 now, so it's been a minute.
That's awesome, though, that I feel there's always one teacher that gets it, right? Like I remember there was always like one or two teachers where you're like, these are the only people who actually understand like what's really going on in the world and like school's place within it and all that.
Yeah,
that's
teachers.
cool that you had at least one teacher that was like, no, I think this is actually good for you. Like that's awesome and supported you.
Right, like a teacher that, kind of also understands the education system and how, young people are realizing that this is not for them and that they can educate themselves on YouTube or, mostly like anything on the internet. There's so much stuff out there. And all through high school, I mean, like at least after I bought my first camera, I'd always been on YouTube learning, and I was like, wow, like I'm literally learning way more than I do at school every day, just like with an hour on YouTube. Yeah. And, that kind of sucks that I was wasting all that time at school.
Yeah,
for sure.
That was like a huge thing, is like, I'm wasting so much time.
It is like,
let's move on.
An outdated model, I feel like, for sure.
Yeah.
Like there's some stuff that, like algebra.
Yeah, a lot of it just doesn't fit
I
into
don't
what
know.
society's become.
Right, and if you
Right.
want to learn algebra, that's great, but for 90% of people that don't, you're wasting your time. And I think there is a value in going to school that I understand now that I didn't understand then, as far as like the social interaction and being around people
Agreed.
and that kind of thing that I didn't understand then. And looking back on it, I wish I took
Definitely.
that more serious. But yeah, the actual classes of it
Right.
See,
are a waste of time.
It's
I
great to have
totally
a place to go and, like be there every day, and especially when you're really young, your parents don't have a place, they go to work every day, they need a place to bring you.
Oh, totally.
So it's great for that. It's great for the social aspect. It's great to be around people. But the class structure, I mean, come on.
yeah, I think
Are there 5 careers like math,
yeah,
science?
exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of careers within those subjects, but there's so much more beyond those 5-6 basic subjects that are part of this super important curriculum that we have.
Yeah, I feel like if we took the social aspect and like leaned into it more heavily, I think it would become like the most valuable thing. Like
Definitely.
there should be classes on like, as silly as it sounds, like how to make friends or like
Yeah.
literal actual life skills where like everyone says it's not what you know, it's who you know. And then they spend a bunch of time teaching you what to know instead of how to make those connections and create actual friendships with the who's that will matter.
Right, like required reading, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Exactly. Yeah, like that book changed my life, and like things like that. I think there's a lot of value in learning how to learn, which is part of school. But again, I just don't think the structure fits anymore because our society's become so kind of free-flowing versus before it wasn't.
Pretty rigid.
And it's a large part of it is just social media and the internet, and like we're in this crazy time that no one could have guessed 50 years ago when they made the school system. And
right, like
it just doesn't
is
quite
coding
fit.
required now? I doubt it,
It should
but
be.
it should be.
Absolutely.
I wish I knew how. I couldn't do
couldn't-
anything.
I mean, I don't think it should be required, but I think it should be an option.
It
You should be
probably
able
is
to
an
have
option.
those options.
It
Yeah.
probably is an option, I would guess.
But it's
by
probably
now,
not
but-
like a heavily
It's not.
encouraged
Yeah, it's not
option.
encouraged.
And like I like the idea of the same way that you have to learn like basic math, learning basic coding, or like
True.
learning like
Yeah.
again like required reading is How to Win Friends and Influence People, or like spending some of the budget that you would have spent on like some of the more outdated things, where in all actuality, like the amount of people that are really interested in taking super serious, like high level sciences is probably a lot less. And there's so much, or maybe not sciences, but like like algebra, and like my freshman year math class was calc trig honors. And I was like, right away, like,
hate those words.
I'll never use this. Like, I was so proud of myself for getting there, and then immediately being like, God help me if I use this every day for my job. Like, I don't want this.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, like, shout out to the people who do know these things because they use crazy math in like NASA and
Our friend
stuff.
is a rocket scientist.
I listened to that
uses it.
podcast. He's a legend. I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
dude!
Wow.
Big shout out to the rocket doctor. But
The
like that's the
rocket
point.
doctor,
Like
yeah.
he knew he wanted to do that really young,
Mm-hmm.
and I think opening up the
That's
door.
not necessarily true.
He told me
I
a story
believe-
of in second grade. He told his teacher that he was going to work on the Hubble Space Telescope,
Okay.
and then
What?
his teacher told him he'd never do it, and then he wrote that teacher back when he worked on the Hubble Space Telescope before he even graduated college.
Why didn't you
Are
tell
you
that
serious?
story on the podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, he has tons of stories like that where like
Yeah.
he's like a nth degree black belt in some
Well,
martial art and stuff.
because in the podcast he talked about he was debating either rocket science or dance. It was like
Yeah.
his debate.
But that's
I don't know if maybe that was just a joke.
No, I guarantee that's so real.